Always check and make sure I say that too. I'm an old man. Sometimes I forget, but record. All righty. So grab your pen and your paper, and we're going to go through the Institut du Fromage 800 manual. I'm not going to read it verbatim to you, but I am going to highlight things. So this is where the notes come in. This was sent just a week ago, to give you that. You can see, look at that pretty guy right there. Nathan just hanging out. Welcome to ACS. Sorry, I just want to make sure it's all pulling up on time. Okay. So you're going to see me looking off to the side and coming back because I actually have my notes in a printed book here, so I can highlight it for you. Okay, just going through the first page. And for your notes, if you don't have it printed out, we're just on page 6. We're starting at page 6. The things that you're going to need to know. All right. So PMO, so pasteurized milk ordinance, is a must. This is something that is very important. You can get asked. So to provide the safest and highest quality product to the consumer, the pasteurized milk ordinance, PMO, you're going to need to know all of these acronyms. So PMO, like write it on your card, what it stands for, and that it started in 2005. All righty. So that's the biggest one off of that page. And 2, notice that when I'm talking of what is highlighted, it's what affects the whole industry. So when we're getting into milk right now, milk is the basis of the cheese industry. So this is going to be, all of this information is going to be more important than anything else. So think about that, like health and regulations, this spans the entire industry. All righty, so now we're going to go to page 7. And the highlights on this page that I would highly suggest you know is, know this little graph up here, milk composition. Know that it's water. Now, milk composition, that changes with the, the percentages changes with milk type. So you could get asked a general, just know that over 85% is going to be water. You're going to have sugar there. You're going to have fat, you're going to have protein, and you're going to have minerals. That's what you need to know, and know what order they're in as far as how much. So there's more water, then it's sugar, then fat, then protein, then minerals. All right, lactose. Sadly, I can't, lactose, you'll see that I got it a little highlighted right there on my computer. Of course, we want to know that. Even carbohydrate, that is, lactose is a carbohydrate. That is something important to remember, especially when we're going down to the milk carbohydrate chemistry right here. All of that could be a question, especially that one paragraph. Lactose crystallization, not as important, okay? And please know, this is a little stipulation I have to give. Everything is up in the air. I do not recall questions about the crystallization of lactose. All righty. Page 7, or excuse me, I'm going on to 8. Triglycerides, boom, boom, boom. You need to know the fat content and chemistry. I would definitely read it, but your triglycerides on this page are going to be the biggest part that could be asked for a question. See, this is all going to narrow down your study. Y'all are so happy. Page 9, let's keep rocking and rolling, team. So milk fat physical properties. This is something, so notice whenever you get temperatures, whether you're reading it off the ACS website, and we're going to get to some more temperatures, but you're going to need to know those. That is, especially when we're talking about pasteurization and things like that. But know that if you give, so milk fat melts over a wide temperature range from approximately, you're going to need to know these temperatures. You may not get asked that question, but there is a chance. And here we're going to go with triglycerides again. Especially if you hear me call it out several times, you know that it's going to be on the test, know the definition, and know how that can be incorporated. All righty, let's keep going down. lipases. Know that. I mean, we need to know how, deterioration of milk fat happens. But you're going to find that lipases, that's going to be what you need to remember. And this whole little paragraph is a nice little, that's a question and a half right there. And anytime you see these little boxes, lipolysis, that is something to remember. Enzymes that degrade fat are called lipases. And the process, lipolysis, that is, if not one, could be two questions. Excellent. It's almost like we have a little study group here. All right, we're going to keep going. 10. So we're going to get a little more in here now. Okay. The term denatured. You see it right here. If I'm going too fast for you guys to write some things down, please let me know. Or if you're not seeing the screen and you need me to spell something, if I'm looking at the word, I'm happy to spell it for you. But the term denatured, that's when proteins unfold from their native chain or globular shape. That is very important. All right, milk protein chemistry. Milk contains 3.3% total protein. That's a fact and a half. Probably going to be questioned on that. Casein and whey protein. This is where you're going to go into really looking at this block here. The two main types of milk proteins, if you see it in the square. You have casein proteins and whey proteins. Two types of milk proteins. Yeah, see, to go in this really helps cut out some of the extra verbiage that's going through there. But read the whole part about casein and whey protein, because that's one section. All right, I'm moving on to the next page. I'm now to page 11. And milk protein physical properties. All right, that's just a good, the casein in milk forms complexes called micelles. That one right there, M-I-C-E-L-E, excuse me, M-I-C-E-L-L-E-S. All right. Then deterioration of milk protein. The main thing is this little block. Whoop, that highlighted too much. The predominant cause of protein degradation is through enzymes called proteases, excuse me. That is what you need. That's a definition. That you're highly likely to get asked that question. Excellent. All right, the influence of heat treatment on milk proteins. Definitely read that, because we're going to get to, I mean, it's got the highlighted point there is high temperature, short time pasteurization. We're going to get to a big graph on that. So that's the main thing. So we're going to get to a whole graph that you should memorize, but that's what we're pulling out of that part. All righty, now we're moving on to page 12. Okay. Denaturization, right there, very top. This causes a change in the physical structure of proteins, but generally does not affect the amino acid composition and thus the nutritional properties. All righty. Here you're going to look, so the vitamins and minerals in milk. This is important. They're not going to ask you about each one of them. It's not like there's going to be a question that says, there's no true or false, of course. It's all multiple choice, but it's not going to really say, give you a list of 4 different choices of random minerals where you have to pick them. But the minerals themselves will be listed in a question, and that you're going to have to know. So you need to know that you're going to have calcium, vitamin D, phosphorus. I have, for some reason, riboflavin highlighted in my book after going after my test. So that's a good one to remember. But this chart is just a good way to point it out. Again, something good to know. Yeah, I've got that highlighted a couple times. Riboflavin is highlighted a couple times on this page, even when we go down here. All righty, calcium phosphate. That is, you need that definition. Okay, we're going to keep going. Not the most entertaining of my classes, but I think it's probably going to help you the most. All right, so enzymes. Enzymes are huge in the cheese making world, but what we want to remember with that is each enzyme has a specific action on its target molecule in optimal conditions, pH and temperature. So know that. And lipases. Lipases are enzymes that degrade fats. If you do not get asked that question, I will be surprised. The way the question could be written, what enzyme degrade fat? That could be a question, and they could give you a couple list of enzymes to choose from. Or it could be a trickier one. They could list a different enzyme to say that. But that's a good little fact to remember. Proteases, there you go. That's your other enzyme. They degrade proteins. So you have one enzyme degrades fat, the other degrade proteins. That's where I mean by it could trick you up just a minute. Or you could trick me up a minute. You all seem so smart. And you'll see the box under the bottom is another highlighted section for it. Again, just getting back to it. But I recall that those are more than likely going to be on your test. And then we have lactoperoxidases. My pronunciation is horrible. I don't recall too much about that one, but since it is an enzyme and found in milk, I would make a note of it. The other two are more important. Oh, I need to let some people in the room. Okay, for those of us that just now are joining us, I'm going through the 800 book and I'm on page 13. If you're just joining us, we're on page 13. All righty. So going down to the dairy microbiology, there's going to be some scientific questions on this. But again, remember that they're not testing whether you're going to become a scientist. They want to know the overall, like, so you don't have to get too nitty gritty. You need to know the top facts, like the cream that rises to the top. That's the knowledge that we're going to go after. But the things to remember that are extremely important with this is the cow's udder and the bacteria that can spread from that. So this whole paragraph, milk is virtually sterile when it's synthesized in a healthy cow's udder. Cows, like humans, though, are natural reservoirs of bacteria. Many of these bacteria are not harmful to humans, but some may be harmful, even though humans, and they're not going to appear to be healthy. But beyond the stage of milk production, microbial contamination can generally occur from three main sources. This wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know what I mean? So this is a question in of itself. So this is where contamination generally comes from. Then the udder, exterior of the udder, or the surface of milk handling and storage equipment. That's a big one. All right, and I'm going to keep going now. I'm going to be on page 14. So with this, I recall several questions being about the sanitation of udders because it is paramount in the cheese world. There is a sickness that can occur within the udder, which is labeled here, mastitis. Mastitis. Make a note of that, circle it, put a star around it. No, you have to put a star on it and circle it, whichever one you want to do, but that is highly important. All right. Because mastitis, I believe everybody should in the cheese world have to know what that is. All righty. Then uh, thermoduric or physiotrophic. Now, those are bacteria. Remember those. So which one you got to know right here. So in this little shaded box, which bacteria survives pasteurization and which ones can grow under refrigeration. Do, 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 do. And we're going to get, of course, in the past 20 years, like we're going to get to more pages that talk about these illnesses and contaminations in general. But I'm gonna look. Hopefully, I'm looking all over you in the eye. You have to know all of these: Salmonella, Listeria, Campylobacter. Those I know them inside and out. I know that's, and quite honestly, because that was more scientific, I'm a very clean individual, but the facts in those can resemble each other a little bit. But there's a whole page dedicated to this, and we'll get more specific with that. And you'll see as we continue to go on. So moving on to the next page, pathogens of concern. I would go ahead and just, I hate to say highlight all of this, but like I said, Listeria, you got to know that. This is something, there's a lot of information about it. Definitely go through and try to sum it up, but with it, you'll need to know what it is, how you contract it, what are the symptoms, how long do they last. Those are the most important aspects when thinking about these illnesses that one could get. So you got bacteria infection. So you see that symptoms, causes, prevention, incubation. I just use different words. I'm sorry, but all of this little section here. So when you go through to make your study cards, just Listeria, write it down, and then boom, all this stuff on the end. I remember that one being Yersinia. I don't recall necessarily being on there. You need to know it because you could catch it. But besides Listeria, the other big dog, Campylobacter, right there. Campylobacter. That's a major one to know, as well as Bacillus cereus. And the thing to remember about this is rod shaped. That's a way that, oddly enough, that they could be asked about that. But anything that you're gonna eat that's gonna cause you some diarrhea and vomiting, you need to know. Okay. Brucella, I would study this guy too. And again, not that any of these are unimportant, but the next big one would be E. coli on this page. Yeah, moving on now, I'm on page 17. 17 has E. coli. Highly important. The next big one, moving on to the next page, Salmonella. I hope all of you have heard of this one. This is what we're all afraid of. Okay. And we're just going to keep moving. You guys are taking good notes, know where to study. Anytime you see these little orange boxes, that's just going to give you a nice little fact. Highlighted too much there. To go in with that. Staph. You need to know about staph infections. All of these to know, but I called out those big ones. I called out the big ones. And here you go. Here's your graph on page 19. It kind of helps sum it up a little bit more for you. Okay. That's a lot. That's something you have to go over by yourself and just continue to read over. Again, work with a study partner, quiz each other. That was very helpful when I took it. Okay, now we're continuing on with bacteria. See how important bacteria are? Psychotrophic bacteria absolutely will be on your exam. Absolutely. Because, and we've covered that before, but they're the ones capable at growing at 44.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Usually that's a non-growing temperature, right? That we like to keep our products. But psychotrophic bacteria can. Okay, now that's now moving on to page 20. Okay, so here's where it goes into really talking about how ruminants digest food. Seeing that all of our cheese comes from ruminants, how important do you think ruminant information is? This is where, not only is milk important, but ruminant as an animal, that's where all the milk, every milk that we drink, unless you drink human milk, that's up to you, but everything else is going to be this. So know what a ruminant is. I would know that in this photograph, you're going to see the label of the different labels of the stomachs, the different chambers. I would know that. The rumen is a highly important chamber. The rumen, definitely remember that. Okay, page 21. All right, so there's just so much information about cows and breeds and sheep and goat and breeds. Again, we're going to want to find top level information. We're not going to break down. There's not necessarily going to be, you're not going to be tested on having to know every single breed of cow. That's not important. What's important for breeds of cows are knowing which ones produce the most milk or use the most. If you probably have heard the word Jersey, Holstein, like, we're not talking even really, you're not going to be asked about new crossbreeds, so to speak. So think about the old breeds, and more often than not, you'll be asked breeds of animals when it's a PDO cheese, or if it's a protected cheese, say like Comté. Comté is made, there's two breeds of cows you can make Comté with. I would know those. Wink. Um, that is, to in my experience and going through this test, that's more about the breeds. If Manchego, what breed of sheep is used to make Manchego? I would know that. That's where they're going to get specific, is more along that PDO line. Okay. So don't get too overwhelmed when it's like, well, a Jersey has this percentage of fat, a Guernsey has this percentage. Slow down on that. Don't wreck your brain worrying about all that jazz. Okay, but what we do want to break our brain doing, let's see. Well, it is good to know the lactation cycles. That we're going to get asked, but it'll be a more general lactation cycle of a cow, lactation cycle of a sheep, lactation cycle of a goat. And we're coming up to some graphs with that. So don't stress on that one too much. But here, there's just one paragraph right here in the middle, if you can see me highlighting it a little bit. Stage of lactation affects milk protein and fat percentages very similar. The highest amount of protein and fat of milk is found just after freshening in colostrum. 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 That is highly important. That's going to be, the colostrum is that first milking that babe that we as humans don't get, but that gives the nutrients, and it gives all that bacteria that protect the baby's tummies. But colostrum is going to be on your exam. Back here on the bottom of this page, back on 21, we're relisting, we're seeing the word mastitis again. Mastitis, Mastitis. That you are going to get asked about. That's a sickness. That's when you can't milk that animal. That is an infected udder. All right, and here you go. All right, so this gives you more along the lines of lactation and composition of cheese making. So we're moving now to page 22. If you needed to make a note. But here along this one here, the one with the green top, the cow, goat, and sheep, that's a solid chart to know because it's more general, right? It's that one is more important than knowing the differences. Like you don't want to break down the breeds of that. Not as important. Okie dokie. We're going to keep going down, la da 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 da, to the bottom of page 22. And I mentioned the word rumen before. Here's a whole paragraph about the rumen function. So know your rumen. All right. Page 23, not unimportant, but not the most important. Okay, I always say read over, feeding management. That's good. We're going to get some information about all this, but this isn't as most important. This gets down. I don't recall. I don't have too many notes. It's good information. I'm going to continue now to page 24. I'm going to keep moving down. One thing to remember. So pasteurization is huge in the dairy industry, right? I would want to know who came up with the idea of pasteurization. It might be right here, Louis Pasteur. So I would know about that. And because pasteurization is so important in the cheese world, you may want to know that, it was when it happened. So I would learn, I would read definitely that part and know Pasteur, who he is, and the time frame. All righty, now to 25. Life cycle production phases I've got highlighted. Yeah, this is good stuff to know, absolutely. Now we're getting into more important stuff. So the life cycle production phases and lactation cycles, absolutely important for us. So that's going to be page 25. You may just want to even highlight the whole thing. So dairy cows are listed at having a 305-day lactation. So question could be, how many days of lactation could be expected in dairy cows? 280, 100, 300, 305. So this is where you want to get specific with your information. But you would also note that it's not going to say what's a lactation cycle of a Holstein versus a Guernsey. They're just going to say cow and keep it general. Early lactation, know that. Late lactation, drying off. That's important to know too, because we've got to give mamas a break. They got to dry off. We got to know that because there's also no cheese production during this time. Excellent. All right, now we're going on to page 26. Natural weaning, drying off of dairy animals. Know about it. I don't recall too many questions specific about drying off. So it's not, I don't recall what are the types of drying off. It's more about the general knowledge of it. So know it, read over it. It's good. It's fun stuff to know. If there's specific days involved, that's what you need to know about drying off. Is if there's a suggestion, goats dry off for X amount of days, that's what to remember. That's the important part. Okay, so that is now moving on to page 27. We're getting there. Again, good stuff to know. And here they're going to break it down. So I would focus more on dairy cattle You know, to know some of these Holsteins make up over 90%. That's fun. You know that Jersey is the second most popular cow in the United States. That's interesting to know. And I would go through, so the other 4 breeds, so know about the major breeds. That's what I was saying earlier about your major breeds. This what's mostly going to be used. That's what you need to focus on. So all this is good information. Know it, but you're not going to get asked a question about William Tell the Bull. Not going to happen. So don't worry about that. Know these boxes right here. There you go. Of the 6 breeds of cow, Ayrshire, Brown Swiss, Guernsey, Holstein, and Jersey, and milking Shorthorn, the Holstein and Brown Swiss are the biggest. See, that's a fact that could be asked about. Okay, so here again, I would say I'm not going to tell you not to read it because it has good information, but we're going to be getting to a little bit more chart kind of information because the next few pages break down each breed. So no, like read this. Again, I would say that the most like to know if there's PDO cheeses more about the milk, more about the breed. Because you have Holstein, so that's page 28. I'm moving to 29. Here you have information about Holstein. You know, anything that we put in these little boxes would be more important to remember. But you're not going to get asked the weight of each individual breed of cow, not at this level. So we're going to move on, continuing to page 29 to page 30. Again, this is all good information, but not a lot of questions are going to come out of this section. Like the Dutch belted coming up. Now I'm even on to page 31. I don't recall anything about that. So I'm going to skip ahead to page 34. All of that. So you see, that's a lot of information. That's several pages. Again, good information to know. But let's get the summary of it. Let's hit these facts. You know, I would say hit up on these. These facts are actually kind of more fun than actually questionable. Cows are social animals. They gather in large herds. It's good to know. You're not going to ask a question about that. Hopefully, you know the difference between a bull and a heifer. That's just so you know when you're asked questions. Gotcha. All right, so going to goats. The good thing about goats, which we're going to hit on page 35, this. Oh, goodness, this is the one, the graph. Oh, we love us a little graph. It helps everything out. You know, and there could be a hint. And again, as an instructor, I can't tell you what's on the test, but I would say maybe know if there's big time goat producers in the US, big time goat producers in the US, what goats they use. And when I say big time goat makers, I mean cheeses that you all carry. There's one in Vermont, wink. There's one in California, next to a grove. And so learn a little bit about those. And again, it's good to know the breeds of goats here. I remember more specifically something about La Mancha being asked. Alpine goats, they're cute. Know their lactation cycles. And this little box here about La Mancha on page 35. La Mancha goats are perhaps the most distinctive goat breed, recognizable by their short ears. They're also known for their high milk production and comparatively high butter fat content in their milk. So when thinking about asking questions about breeds, that's going to be more like a question. You know, La Mancha are prized for their milk because there would be an option of they have higher goat milk production, they have comparatively high butter fat in their milk. If those were part of the question or part of the answers, that's how you could build a question around there, if that makes sense. All right. If it doesn't make sense, chime up, pretty please. All right. We're going to keep going, team. Nobody has run away screaming yet, so that's great. You know, like Nubian, Tottenberg, like all these are good to know. Good to know. But there's not 1,000 questions. There's more questions about food safety than there are about goat breeds. Yeah, so page 36, I'm going to go ahead and move through. Page 37, I'm going to push through. Page 38, hit the highlight. I would read it, but it's not something you need to necessarily make cards about, I don't believe. All right. So we're going to keep going now. We're moving to page 38. Goats are so cute. Baby goats are the best. Let me catch up here. So again, these are animals. Don't have to know them all too specifically. But sheep in general. Again, when you talk about cows, think general. Sheep, you're going to hit this general too. Hopefully you know that sheep milk does carry more fat than cow or goat. That's something to remember. Here I've got lactation. So at the bottom of page 39, lactation in sheep, that you want to circle and remember. So dairy breeds will lactate for 120 to 240 days. That right there sounds like a sheep milk question to me. Excellent. And those are more of the facts that you need to know. All right, so moving to page 40, milk production per year. You know, be familiar with that. All right, facilities, spring lambing, winter lambing, year-round milking. This is all good to know. Not necessarily a bunch of questions, to be honest with you. You know, to me, it'd be more about lamb growth. Like, I would want to know more about how long does it take for a lamb to become a milking mama. That to me, that like, as a cheese maker or somebody in the cheese industry, like that's the most important knowledge. And I hope by giving these little tips that helps train you the way to think about these questions as well. I'd want to know like how long, like how old they have to be. Does it take 10 years? It doesn't. I was pulling that out of my rear. But does it take a year? Does it take 2 years? That's what's important. Okay. So we're continuing on now. I'm on page 41. And the very bottom of 41, healthcare. I see the word mastitis again. I don't know how many times I can tell you you're going to get asked about mastitis. It's a fact, Jack. All righty. And we're going to keep going on here. I'm on page 42. Milking regulations. And milking parlors. This is good information. I would study milking parlor information more out of the good cheese making manual from the ACS website. Okay, like this is good information, but it's a little bit all over the place. But talking about milk parlors, that you get it from the ACS website from the cheese making, so the good cheese making practices. And that's under your resources on their website. Here I've got Lacune sheep, though. For some reason, I've highlighted this one. Rogue 4. Look at there. So again, breeds, I think, are going to be more specific to what cheeses they make, especially if they're protected. So that's why I have Legume, because that goes into make Rogue 4. That's a solid question. Rogue 4 was the first protected cheese ever and the first blue cheese ever. So it would make sense that you're going to get asked about that and ask about the milk that goes into it because it is protected. Excellent. All right, so you'll see like that's where we're pulling out breeds. All right, so we're going to keep rolling. Do read it, but don't. Hold on, we got to let somebody in. Do read it, but don't spend too much time on it. All right, so we're going to continue on to 43. we're moving. And again, anytime you see these blocks, that's a hint to study that harder. And we just keep going through breeds now. So page 44, more breeds. The Parisian, East Parisian, that's a good one to know. That's important. But we got a good block here that kind of sums it up. You're not going to get asked a lot about British sheep milk cheeses. There's not too many anymore. But a breed on page 45 that I think you have a high likelihood of getting asked about, Manchega. This one you have a high likelihood of getting asked about. And again, I would know what cheese. That's if you don't, Manchego. So this is, but Manchego, again, it's a big dog. And when I talk about our PDO cheeses, and I please forgive my country words, but like Roquefort, Comté, Manchego, Parmigiano, like your big dogs. Those are the ones we're going to focus on when we get to that section. If you want to start studying your protected cheeses, start big and work your way down. All right, now we're going to keep going. The rest of these, more breeds, more breeds, more breeds. Page 46 is more breeds. I don't recall much about that. Page 47 is more breeds. I don't recall so much about that. Now the Sarda, I would like Pecorino Romano, Pecorino Sardo. That could be something to remember. Water buffalo, that could get tossed in there. Water buffalo is that good curveball that most people know. We're going to spend all our time studying milk. Water buffalo is going to show up on the side just to be fun with you, right? And in that, things to remember is this little box. Second largest source of milk supply. You know, so cows give the most, then water buffalo would give the second amount. That could be a question. And I would, with water buffalo, for the history of cheese, I would look up how water buffalo got to Italy. Water buffalo, there's a story about water buffalo. It actually comes through global conquest. I believe it was Constantine that brought water buffalo are not native to Italy, but water buffalo milk is big in Italy. So do a little research on that. There may be like one question on it though. It's like don't like spend days on it. There's probably a question or two. That's it. That's about it. All right, we're gonna keep going. Oh my God, this is going so fast. I'm just gonna keep talking. I'm gonna keep giving you more hints. Now, camel, look, how much camel milk do you sell? Do any of you sell camel milk cheeses? Probably not on your test. Good to know to be a cheese professional, but you're not like, you don't sell these, so it's not of higher priority, right? Camel, again, how many camel milk cheese? Now I think one camel milk is coming into play in a jar, but not as top priority. Water buffalo would be a top priority over the rest of the animals. You see what I mean? Because you actually probably sell a water buffalo like a mozzarella. Horse, there's no questions about horses on this test. Don't worry about that. But did you know it's actually do you know donkey milk is more easy for humans to digest than any other animal milk? I thought that was interesting. Not on the test. Yak, not on the test. So let's keep going. That was page 48. Let's just blow past that. Fun things to know, not to worry about. Page 49. Grazing in pastures. Yeah. I'd probably want to know a little bit more about that because what the animals eat goes into what the animals put out. So that's important to us, everybody in the industry. So I would want to know about grazing and pastures, rotational grazing. So I would read through that. Gotcha. Yeah. So to get more specific with you, when we hit page 50, seasonality and terroir. Those are your big ones that's going to hit there. And terroirs, I recall a couple of questions about terroir, but I'll guide you. Some of that's going to be in the hardbound books that you have. So terroir is also explained by Max McCallan in his book, if you want to take a note on that. Terroir is also covered in Oxford Companion to Cheese. There's more information about it there too. All right. Science-based benefits. I'd read over that, but the big things to remember are going to be on your next page, on page 51. Page 51, you're going to get more specific. There we go. So rotational grazes versus old world pasture. That's a nice blurb. That's great. This whole page I find pretty helpful. Seasonality, it gets different. Alpage. I'm going to say this again. Alpage. Write that one down. This one, I'm going to throw this. There was two questions. There was an alpage question twice on my exam. The same question. Just wanted to throw it out there. It wasn't meant to be. I just want to give you an example of these questions are still put together by humans, more often than not, donating their time. So there may or may not be a mistake. If you get to a part where you feel there's a mistake, answer it the best you can, but know that they're going to review these questions. And if they ask something twice, they can throw it out. But alpage, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I would know that one for sure. Silage, of course, another big one. Something that I would want to have an understanding, not necessarily the different, like how it affects cows versus sheep versus goats, but how does being grass fed versus silage fed, what does that affect? Are there some types of cheeses that do not do well with their animals being silage fed? A hint there, alpine cheeses. Because silage, a lot of times you're going to have fermented hay, and that destroys or bloats alpine style cheeses. Such of that which you may find at Springbrook Farm, like their Terrentays. Excellent. And here's a little bit more about terroir to get into that concept. All right, I got you for 5 more minutes. I'm going to keep going. Hopefully this is helping you guys out. Move on to the next page, page 52. Look at there, nice little graph. And this gives you an example of fat versus protein. I don't think you're necessarily going to have to pick all of those out. I would know it and have a background of it just to know more or less that, which animal has the most fat in their milk. So looking at this, Jersey. So looking at a graph to say, well, if I'm not going to memorize this entire graph, what's my takeaway? Look under fat. Look at what's the highest fat? Jersey. That sounds like it could be a question. Which breed of cow has the highest amount of fat in its milk? That would be a question probably. Protein, you can go along the same way, even though some of them are kind of even. Again, that goes with Jersey. So you see how I'm picking out the highest or the lowest and not having to know each one in particular? That's a good way to study. Okay. We're going to keep going down a little bit more. All right, here's another one. Bovine Mastitis. For the love of all that's holy, please study mastitis. All righty, because that affects every animal. Okay, a couple more minutes. You guys, look at you. Y'all are so interested, having such a good time. Here we go. We're going to keep going. Next page, page 52. I skipped over 53. Great stuff. Milking barn and parlor. Yes, those are important. The most specific information, though, is going to be found in your cheese making guide on the ACS website. So when referring to your milking barn, stable, and parlor, study the cheese making guide from the ACS website. That's going to give you your best information there. And you can just skip over it here. 54. Again, a lot of the information is pulled from that anyway. We'll have to go over that booklet too. Yeah. All that's good to know, but it's more specific in that other manual. Let's continue on to 55. Let's see. All right, we're getting somewhere. On to page 56. Please read all this. It all is, we got to keep it clean. But again, everything about the milk house come from their cheese making guide, ACS website. But what I want to get to at the bottom of 56 is this one. Item 13, milking, flanks, udders, and teats. That's where we get our milk from. That's the highest priority of cleanliness that we need to do. You're going to get asked, though, about the cleanliness of parlors, of milking rooms, of udders, because they want you to know how important cleanliness is. If you can kind of get the gist of why this test is the way it is. And even on page 57 here, I highlighted this whole thing. Cleanliness of lactating animals is one of the most important factors affecting the bacterial count of the milk. That you're going to ask. Under usual farm conditions, lactating animals contaminate their udders by standing in polluted water or by lying down in pasture or cow yard. That's on your test. How they ask you, they probably changed it up since I took it, but that specifically is on your test. Excellent. All righty, I'm going to give you a couple more. I know we got a minute. Some of you, we all got to go. But moving on to page 58, we're getting somewhere big. 58 is important. Okay. So here we're going to talk about, where's my 58? Yeah, page 58. Item number 18, raw milk cooling. Woo! Raw milk, a lot of bacteria. If it's talking about cooling, like we're going to want to know about that. So that is extremely important. Those temperatures on page 58, big page. All of that, public health reasons, raw milk in our industry is a big deal. We got to know about it. Next up at the bottom of that though, starter cultures. Starter cultures, I'm going to end up, give me one more second to go through page 59 with you. The starter culture, everything about that starter culture, no. Now we're into very important information. Page 59 continues with starter culture, very important information. Because what we want to get to at the bottom of page 59, we're reading all that. The purpose of cultures, of course, you got to know. Cultures are paramount, but this, mesophilic and thermophilic on page 59. There's several questions about mesophilic cultures and thermophilic cultures. Thermophilic is a heat-loving culture used to make cheese that can be heated to 130 degrees. Mesophilic is a non-heat-loving culture and is used for making cheeses that are not heated to more than 102 degrees. So the thing is, you've got to know the fact. You got to know that fact. Plus, when you look under mesophilic, you'll see this would include soft cheeses, chev, blue cheese, feta, cottage cheeses, farmer's cheese, Colby, cheddar, camembert. So you got to know not only what a mesophilic culture is, but what cheeses do we use those cultures for? What style? Then you're not going to get asked if it's a specific cheese like Mary Quick's cheddar uses. That's not it, but cheddar as a category would be it. And thermophilic the same way. Because you're going to get asked a definition, and then these words are going to get used in questions. They're not going to ask you about thermophilic cultures, but a thermophilic culture could be just in the question itself, and it could ask you something different, so you have to know what it is, if that makes sense. But those two, like put a star, circle them, whatever you got to do, those are two big time. And it follows up with more information on page 60. So thermophilic, mesophilic, continue knowing those. All right, we've hit our 2 o'clock deadline. I'm going to, give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can't stop recording. All right, any questions? Any questions? I want to ask you guys a question. Is this helpful for you? I want to make sure if I'm spending this time with you that this is helpful and this is something you need, because I find I like this style. I'm not giving you answers, but I'm telling you where to really focus on. So if you don't mind, I see this as continuing on. And if I need to throw in extra classes to go through it, I don't mind that. I want you all to pass. I want you all to be professionals. So this is going to be the continued style that we go through, but I'm seeing that we may have to add another class or two a month, or maybe every 2 weeks. But even if you can't make it, we'll still record it. Okay. So all of this can go through, and this is helpful for this book. Thank you guys so much. So more down for more classes. I did have a question on the top. I didn't see that, Austin. I'm sorry. I'm reading my chat right now. I missed it. So any other questions? In the best practices, there's a section at the end of each chapter about the controls and hazards for each process. Are they important to study? I also see that there's a lot of overlap in this section and throughout the whole best practices. Yes, because what they're talking about is HACCP. When it goes through the best practices, when they're critical control points, the short answer to your question, who asked me that, is yes, it is important. The thing is, when you see a lot of overlap, especially from the ACS materials, overlap means you're going to get asked a question. Train your brain to think like that. You're like, just like we saw the word mastitis 7 times today. Mastitis is on the test. So yes, so think like that. If you keep seeing it repeated and repeated in several different sections, that means it's so important that they're mentioning it all across the board. And if they're mentioning it all across the board, they're going to ask you about it. Absolutely. More messages. All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much. We're going to keep them rock and rolling. I'll send out a recap. Everything you can, every one of these again, go to the YouTube Institute du Fromage. Read and study. Have a good one.
Hey, quick question.
Oh,
how do
I just stopped sharing. We're okay. We're still on. Yes.
All right. I wasn't able, for some reason, I must have the wrong email address down. So I didn't get the link for this right away.
Shoot it to me again. I also provide, human error on my part is more than likely what it was.
I think it was probably my part. So what's yours again? It's N.
I'm typing it in right now for you. I'm putting it on the chat. So naldridge@gfifoods.com. If you shoot me your email from there, I'll be able to add it, and I'll send you a response that I added you on. Sometimes with typos, because really what I do, if you send me your email, I just copy and paste it onto my spreadsheet.
No problem at all. I'm terrible with emails. And then just to see today's class, I can go on the Institute du Fromage YouTube.
Yes. Also, I use the same number for Zoom.
Okay.
So I have a personal Zoom account. So if you think you missed one, it's the exact same number. But I'll make sure to get everybody added on.
This is definitely super helpful. I think everybody's talking about it. We love these classes, brother. We appreciate it.
Perfect. I want you to pass. Keep reading, though. It's up to you to read it. I
got it, brother.
I'm leading horses to water. Y'all got to drink.
I will drink. I promise. Thank you very much.
Have a great one, guys. And reach out to me on email if you need anything. I'm here for you. I'm a resource. I want you to pass.
If anybody, I was thinking about it while you were talking, especially about all the biological terms and stuff like that. If anybody's getting tripped up by it, a good resource is to look online for like biological or biochemistry root words and suffixes. It really helps. Like proteolysis, protein breakdown. It just helps remember it. So that's a really good shortcut.
Thank you, Katie. Awesome. That's absolutely right. See, like it takes a village to raise this child of a CCP.
I had a teacher that made us memorize them in high school.
It's harsh. But continue to work together. Like this is where, I'm going to start each one with like an open call. Hey, let's talk to each other. Hopefully you can meet each other on these calls or on a YouTube, like what is it, the Facebook study group, and hopefully you can work with each other. Normally we would be able to be in the same room to get to meet, but right now this is all we got. But reach out to me if there's anything you need, guys. I'm here for you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.